Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of the Rugby League Coach podcast. My name is Lee Addison. I'm your host this week. Sorry I've not been hosting for the last 2 weeks. You've had to deal with the lackluster, the lazy, the sloppy starts that my first senior guest today, Taylor Brown, normally has. Taylor, how are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Lee. I mean, I've had better introductions.
You deserve it because I saw your Instagram at the weekend and you were somewhat. I can't say you were inebriated because I've got no proof that you were inebriated, but you were certainly not quite compos mentis, I felt, when I was looking at the video. And then secondly, it was your birthday only yesterday as we record. What age have you reached today? Yesterday?
Mate, I've reached the ripe old age of 29.
29 and never been kissed.
29 looking fine, I like to think. But,
so, yeah, you deserve everything you get, to be quite frank. And then I come across my screen because we're recording this on Zoom. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you're seeing our Zoom recording. If you'd rather listen to it, though, you can get it on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. I always mix the order up. If you're listening to it, you can always watch it on YouTube. And as I look across my screen, I see the handsome, the debonair, but the rule-breaking and law-breaking Raneel Kumar. Any police tickets this week, Raneel?
Clean sheet for me this week.
Clean sheet. Good lad. Good boy. I will start with you, actually. You must have been both cheeks off the seat on Sunday morning, was it, or Saturday morning, with Fiji's performance against New Zealand. Tell us about your emotions and what you thought about the game.
I don't know how people are going to take this, but I actually didn't watch it.
Why?
I think I just had a big day, and then I just clocked off and went to sleep and forgot about it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I saw the highlights, and I was pretty gutted. But still very proud,
did you know the result before you watched it?
Yes, yes, I did. Yeah,
I can't do that, if I watch it.
Really?
Yeah, I can't.
I just need to know the
score. I don't. So I might just watch like the 3 minute, just see the goals or whatever. I can't. Yeah. So that's how I roll. So don't you sit here saying to us that you're a Fiji fan if you can't even be bothered watching the biggest game that they've had in 4 years. Bit disappointed in you, Brownie. No backdrop this week, just plain old white.
Yeah, look, all business, all games the last couple of weeks. But to be honest, I've run out of backgrounds. So
okay, well, the people watching, it looks like you two are painting your walls or something because of that. Both the walls are white. At least I've got a bit of something going on here, behind. So
this is my background. I actually have some plans to get a few of my jerseys framed and put them behind me here.
Yeah, one of your jerseys would fill that area.
Yeah, that's. I've got a few designs for my jerseys. I don't know if I'm going to do one jersey, and you know how people do half and halves. I was going to do like a couple of different, half and half,
quarters
and half
kind of thing, like Harlequins.
Yeah. I thought maybe change it up a little bit, and for the 4 biggest sort of teams or whatever that I played for, represented, I thought that maybe that might be good. But anyway,
format-wise today, Raneel, because we've not got James who's driving the bus, and poor Tim's been in hospital again for something. He's got some ongoing things that he's just got to deal with. He's not in any trouble or anything like that, but old injuries, and he said he's like a zombie today. So what I'll do is I'll talk primarily to Taylor, or with Taylor, Raneel. Can I just ask you to just jump in whenever you feel like it, rather than me going, Raneel, what do you think, and you might have an opinion on it. Just jump in whenever you feel like it, mate. Okay, and don't be scared to interrupt. All right. How's that sound?
Yeah, I'll probably have questions for you guys too.
Yeah, sweet. Okay. Last week I was a bit fired up, Raneel. I think this week Taylor's going to be quite fired up because he's supplied this topic. He wants to talk about it. Let me preempt it. Harry Grant, the Melbourne Storm hooker and Kangaroos hooker, has accused the game's power brokers of lowballing its athletes. For those who don't know, there's still negotiations ongoing about player contracts, money, this, that, and the other pertaining to the comp. Things that we probably can't even think about. There's so many things not locked in for next year, and it's really late. And the Daily Telegraph and other people have reported that clubs remain in limbo over the size of their squads and salary cap ahead of the 2023 season. Players have also been left in the dark over minimum wage and revenue sharing aspects of the agreement. Harry Grant, the quote that came out and that was headlined was that, quote, "I think a development contract is $60,000. Some blokes will be better off going to work on the tools," close quote. Taylor, I've bowled you a ball. What are you hitting back?
Yeah, I guess seeing that sort of comment, yes, it is not a lot of money. $60,000 or whatever it is not a lot of money for a development contract player. It's very hard to live off such things. However, they're being given an opportunity to train full time with an NRL club. In a development contract, the club's saying you may not be there, you may not be thereabouts. There's a possibility of a future for you. Here's $60,000 to help you contribute to your dream this year. Yes, they might make more money going and being tradies, but that's a sacrifice you make for the life you want to live. I mean, Lee, I'm sure you've made plenty of sacrifices in your life to have the lives that you want to live. I'm sure you've given up things and opportunities that may have been great, but you've sidelined them because you thought, I'm in the right lane that I need to be right now. This is what I want to do when I push forward. I mean, you and your business is a perfect example. You're a teacher. You're a very well respected rugby league coach within not only the school community and other communities. You saw a path that you wanted to take your life. You saw what you wanted to do. You've had this vision of bringing your coaching and your methods to hundreds and thousands of kids now that may not have got that opportunity if it hadn't been for the business you've started, right? You had to dive into that. You had to jump. You had to take that gamble. I mean, yes, $60,000 is not a lot of money, but these aren't players lighting the NRL alight. These aren't players that are at the top of their game. It's an opportunity.
I think.
How many tradies across Australia would just kill to be in that position?
In terms of sacrifice, the big sacrifice I made, mate, is leaving my family in England to ply my trade over here.
Yes.
That is the sacrifice. But anyway, it's not an appendage measuring competition about sacrifices, right?
It's not.
I just wanted to throw that in there. What's interesting about all this is the role of the media in the way it's coming out, and then the role of the RLPA in responding to said media and putting out statements. Before I start to unpack it, Taylor, because I've got a feeling that this could take up quite a lot of our conversation. Can I just ask where you stand in terms of the whole thing? So you see this in the newspaper or you hear it. Do you think players are being greedy, or do you think players deserve more? Or do you think, I don't know.
Listen,
what do you think?
My stand is now and will always be, I want the players to be well looked after. I really do. I do want the players to be well looked after. I don't want there to be an NRL player out there that is real struggling for cash, strapped for cash, doesn't have the opportunity to invest, all those sorts of things. I don't want that. But what I've seen come out, on some of the articles I've read on the pitch that was given to the RLPA for the players, it's quite a substantial jump as it is. It is quite a substantial jump. I don't want to see the NRL profiting millions into the back pocket, just for the back pocket. I'd like to see it go to junior rugby league.
Right. But, so my take on this, and having consumed what I've consumed about the issue, is actually we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. The more we give to the players, the less we'll be able to go to other areas of the game.
Yes.
And because the pool isn't that big, it's quite a significant robbing Peter to pay Paul scenario. So, for example, development will take a hit. Right. What I'll do, and this will be I'll be able to bring in Raneel on this, right? I'm going to list what the players get. All right. So you've seen the rich list, you've seen the players that are on a mill and all this and blah, 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 blah. But did you know almost half of NRL players are on $150,000 or less? 30% of players support dependents other than children, e.g. parents, grandparents, siblings. The current minimum wage, players 1 to 26 in a squad, is 120,000, but it was 112,000 with the COVID pay cut. I don't know if that is still in place. Players 27 to 30 in an NRL squad, 80,000. Now, I want to just hover around that in a minute. I think players 23 to 30 are getting used more and more because of the injury rates in the competition, right? Then train and trial wages are currently $1,000 per week for a minimum of 3 days of training. And the minimum wage for development players is $60,000. Proposals, I'll go to proposals from the RLPA in a minute, or what's been tabled. So, Raneel, I've just read out some figures for you there. The rugby league players get paid too much or too little?
I think too little. I mean, we're talking about, this is a combat sport after all, they can potentially lose their lives, or if not more. If not, they can be paralyzed or whatnot. As you mentioned, there's a lot of kids.
Players have kids.
Yeah. So I definitely think that's underpaid. You're probably still going to have to work after you retire as well.
The Telegraph reported this week, like today, I think. So this is Thursday, the 10th of November. I think it was today or yesterday, that the ARL Commissioner tabled a landmark $1 billion deal that will make NRL stars the highest paid generation of players in rugby league's 114-year history. And rugby league's female players have also been offered a groundbreaking package. The deal was tabled in late September, and it's been rejected by the Rugby League Players Association, despite being a pay rise of 23%. So, I've painted a bit more of the picture there.
Mate, the proposed salary cap, 12.5 million from 10.2. So it's currently 10.2 million. It'll go to 12.5 million. The players have been offered an extra 222 million over the next 5 years. The NRLW salary cap is rising from 350,000 to 800,000 next season. So every single person in that squad can double their wage.
The thing is, right, they can talk about salary caps, but that does not control how the clubs spend the money.
It doesn't control how the clubs spend the money.
So they could give the top players 50% of that still, right?
Absolutely.
Or 60% or whatever. That's the problem. Do you want to know the RLPA response that's currently on their website? Following a number of reports in the media, the Rugby League Players Association, RLPA, would like to make a number of clarifications on the status of the current collective bargaining negotiations with the NRL and Australian Rugby League Commission. The RLPA board met to address the current status of the CBA negotiations to make informed and appropriate recommendations to RLPA management. During the meeting, the board were updated on the NRL's commitment to providing the RLPA with a revised CBA proposal no later than today. And then it says Wednesday, October the 19th. So the RLPA actually hasn't updated its website. And that is the last thing on there. So I would assume nothing has moved since then if they've not updated their website. So we have a problem, Houston, don't we?
We absolutely have a problem. This needs to be sorted out as soon as possible. But there's talks that are ongoing, and obviously there are some things that the players are coming to that need to be met. My question is, how long does this keep going? The NRL is not a well that's just going to go on forever and ever. They can't find money from somewhere. The RLPA have said that the NRL have opened the books. Sorry, the NRL have said they've opened the books to the RLPA, right? There must be something that the RLPA are seeing that they think should be allocated towards them. There's obviously some monies that they are thinking should be contributed towards them that's not. It's the only thing I could think of. If you're going into negotiations with someone and they say, look, here's the pool of money. That's it. That's all we've got. I'm offering you this much. I cannot give you any. I don't have any more to give you. You're not going to be happy.
No.
You're not going to say, you're not going to walk away, thinking everything's outstanding. But it is what it is. If you want to continue down that path, you have to sign on to that because that is all that's there. If the NRL have done that and opened it up to the RLPA, there's obviously a couple of little sticking points in and around money somewhere going towards something that they're not happy with. I just love to know what that money is, where it's currently going, where it's sitting, and what the RLPA want done with it. It's just...
The other thing that we have in the equation that we may not have had to think about even months ago or years ago is the ladies' game. So, and that's the most recent statement that came out. So again, RLPA website. Let's hope there's been no news since this, because they would have put it on the website, you'd have hoped. But it says, in response to media reports, the 2023 NRL draw has been delayed. The NRLW draw has been delayed. The female leaders of the RLPA would like to make the following statement. As players, we are frustrated with the current status of our CBA negotiations. While we acknowledge that the NRL has understood the players' position on the draw, we hope that we now have the opportunity to prioritise our historic first women's CBA before continuing the future of the NRLW and our obligations. We have already played 5 seasons of NRLW. We have invested in the startup and growth of the competition. It has come as a cost to our personal lives, families, employment, and studies, but we have committed to making these sacrifices because we are pursuing our dreams and we want to build strong foundations for the future of the game. However, the lack of security and certainty does take a toll, and we believe it is time that we are afforded the respect we deserve through the first ever women's CBA. The CBA is intended to change that and provide all players with a clear pathway to pursuing a professional rugby league career. The players' right to negotiate and agree to our employment terms and obligations is a central and fundamental claim in the CBA bargaining process. An announcement of the draw would have set the structure and largely dictated the hours of work for players, which should not happen without a CBA. And it goes on, it goes on, it goes on. It's a mess.
It's a mess. And to be clear, I don't disagree with the players and what they want. I don't disagree with it.
No.
I just, yes, they need these things in place. Yes, they need to know the salary cap they're playing with. Yes, they need to know the schedules. Yes, they need to know the obligations before they sign up to something. Clubs need to know as soon as possible, especially more so in the NRLW, because, I mean, if I'm in the NRLW and there's a certain amount of money on the table, but I've got a career somewhere else and I need to push myself in that, I need to know as soon as possible so I can tell the club that's interested. The club knows I'm not going to be a part of the plans because, hey, I'm actually getting better opportunities if I just go and work. Now that's just
play rugby union
or union.
Yeah,
that's just the infancy of women's rugby league. I don't like it. I don't think it's great. I think it'd be awesome if all players were paid accordingly, but this is just what happens in the infancy of a game. There has to be sacrifice and things like that, which no doubt they're already making. I just think we should have been a lot better than this. Why has it taken this long? Clint Newton said that they were supposed to be done by mid-season, this deal. This deal was supposed to be sorted, signed off by mid-season. It's been 6 months where they've kicked the can down the road. At the moment, it's fairly civil within the media, I would say. Peter V'landys was asked for a comment. He said, we don't negotiate through the media. It's all behind doors. At what stage do you think this starts to blow up, Lee? Do you think a week, 2 weeks? It's almost on headline every single day.
To me, it's already blowing up.
But it's not, because it's in the news. Lots of reporters are talking about it. Players are putting quotes on Instagram. Yes, sure, absolutely. RLPA is putting things out there, but there's nothing nasty going on at the moment. There's nothing really nasty going. I think
but it's heating up.
It's heating up. I think we're going to get to a stage within the next 2 weeks where the CBA could completely overshadow the final of the World Cup. Semi-finals on this weekend. I'm seeing less and less in the media about Australia versus New Zealand. I'm seeing more about the CBA.
The V'landys and Abdo didn't travel to the World Cup as a result of this.
And rightfully so. This is one of the biggest crucial and crunch times in the history of the sport. Yes, it is a World Cup. I understand they're the chair of the ARLC, all those sorts of things. But this is more important. This is homegrown. There's talks, as you know, in the media about a rebel competition already starting to get floated. Now, shut down several times. Wayne Bennett shut down. Lots of clubs have said no. But what do you think? Where there's smoke, there's fire?
For sure. I mean, they're obviously, I guess when we were talking about Des Hasler and the Manly scenario the other week, I brought up that Des has certain journalists in his pocket on the sort of Fulton side and whatnot. And the Penn family had certain journalists in their pocket. So you saw two versions of the same story in Fairfax and Daily Telegraph. Sometimes you saw it in News Corp media in two different pages. You saw different things. Yes. I'm going to sneeze in a minute.
Look up to the light. The light will get you. It helps you sneeze.
Oh. There you go.
See?
I thought it was going to stop me sneezing.
No, it helps you sneeze. Get it out of the way and then keep going.
What happens on telly if somebody wants to sneeze?
They look up at the light.
Well, that makes you sneeze.
But to stop them sneezing is what I'm saying.
There'd have to be a way to stop yourself sneezing. There must be some scientific way to stop yourself. I don't know it. I've never had that issue. I don't suffer from hay fever, so it's
we digress. So what I see here is exactly the same thing playing out. The Telegraph are obviously on the side of the NRL.
Yes.
With this, Paul Kent wrote some stuff where he was basically bagging the players.
So did Peter Bedell.
News Corp.
Yeah, he come out, Peter Bedell, he said he came out with, this was the headline was proof the NRL players aren't being lowballed. And his opening line is, I wish my employer was the National Rugby League. You know, and then immediately he talks about Nathan Cleary's on $1.3 million at age 24, which is over $100,000 a month. And at the same age, he was on $36,000 and flat out paying his HECS debt.
Yeah, where he's got it wrong, though, is he's not looked at the bottom half.
Yeah, and where he's got it wrong is that he wasn't as talented as Nathan Cleary. So
yeah,
that's also, you know, I could turn around and say that I'm 29 years old, I'm earning this amount of money, and you know, at the same age, Elon Musk was earning millions. It's like, well, I'm not as talented as Elon Musk.
If 50% of the NRL is earning less than 150 Gs, that means all things being equal, every team, 50% of every team is earning 150 Gs, which means 50% of 30 people, which is 15, which means two people on your bench are on 150 Gs ish. Now, we all know that 8 rounds in, NRL clubs resemble a MASH unit. And that means some of those players in positions 27, 28, 29, and 30, they start to come into it, which means some of the players that you're watching in the NRL, folks, are earning something like $80,000 a year.
Yes.
You actually get more teaching once you've taught for a few years. You probably get more in so many other occupations that aren't as hazardous, like the term that you mentioned, Raneel, in health, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I think that's probably more of a shocking statistic, isn't it? That 50% of NRL players are on less than 150,000. It also speaks to the management of the salary cap by these clubs, and we've seen it in year after year. I think Ben Hunt for me is the big one. Ben Hunt triggered something a lot across the NRL that will never be changed ever again. The Ben Hunt Dragons deal. I think it was $1.2 million for 5 years. And when Ben Hunt got, I think before that it was Cameron Smith, Jonathan Thurston, and I think that maybe Billy Slater. That was it. They were the only people that were on over $1 million. And even then it was scraping in, you know, it wasn't much. And then when Ben Hunt got $1 million and he was on this, he wasn't in that top 3 level that was going around the NRL at the time. All of a sudden, everyone wanted $1 million. Did you remember that? It was all $1 million, and it was this chain reaction of players leaving. I think Andrew Fafita got a $900,000 deal at the Sharks at one stage during all these dramas.
You know, during the Super League war, there was Harold Matthews and SG Ball players getting contracts like 30 grand, 40 grand. What also happened, and I got this on very, very good authority, that on both sides of the world, players were queuing up to see the chairman of the club to get an updated wage. And as we're walking out, like Taylor might be walking out, Raneel, and how much did you get, Taylor? Oh, I got 100. I think I'm better than him. I do more hit-ups than him. I'm going to ask for, so it just escalated and they were just chucking it out there. So, I mean, ultimately, mate, people have got to earn money for the work that they do. And I guess what sickens me is that somebody who's earning 80 grand can't go out and have a few schooners after he's done a week's work, because he'll probably end up on the front page of one of the newspapers.
Yes.
Particularly if he has a bit of an argument or something with someone, or something he says gets taken out of context, or God forbid he does something a bit silly. I'm torn on this. I want the players to get the world, because without a salary cap, more people would invest in the sport. With that investment, you'd be able to pay somebody like Sonny Bill Williams not to leave rugby league in the first place. Can you imagine Sonny Bill stayed in rugby league? Like,
yeah, it would have been.
Crowd would have been bigger. Return would have been big. Obviously I'm a businessman, so I feel I'm speculate to accumulate. That's my mindset. It doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just saying that's my mindset. But I do know at the other end of the scale that it's going to impact development. Yes. It's going to impact boots on the ground development.
I just think that if the NRL has tabled a deal of $12.5 million salary cap, meaning there's $416 or something $1,000 for every single person in your top 30. It has to come down to a little bit of management of that salary cap, that we have so many players on $150,000. I mean, who does it say more? The clubs, would it almost work if they said, all right, the minimum wage is $200,000 for anyone in the top 30? And then the management of the upper echelons would have to be sorted out a little bit better. I think I'd rather see your Cameron Munsters be on $1 million or Tedesco's on $1 million instead of the 1.3s and 1.4s you've seen going around. If it meant everyone in that squad was, on a fair bit more money, I don't know. It's hard because who should be able to tell you how much you earn at your job? It's just a tough scenario.
No salary cap equals no need for a CBA.
Yes, but it also means the death of a lot of clubs.
But that will also mean others will replace them. So, for example, Redcliffe, in theory, could have been an NRL side 20 years ago. East Tigers could be, in theory, if you had a system like that, you could keep.
So, what do they do? What do they do in the Super League, Lee?
In what sense?
The salary cap.
I don't know the exact figures, but there is one. I remember when I was involved in Super League, I remember some very interesting stories floating around. So one player in particular. So when I was at Wigan, for example, Adidas was the kit manufacturer.
Yes.
And there were stories, I don't know how true they were, but some people reckon that some of the players were some of the most well-paid warehouse men in the history of Adidas, so, but I'm not saying that's true, that's what was going around.
I've heard stories in the modern day in the NRL of people's wives being the most well-paid worker at a leagues club.
Got you. So it don't,
yeah.
This is the problem with salary cap. How do you actually truly police it? Really,
it's hard. Would you be if there was no salary cap? The NRL just said, right, here's this much dollars to each club for your players. There's no salary cap. Because the NRL gives each club their salary cap. They say, right, the salary cap's $12.5 million.
Yeah,
it's $12.5 million. That guarantees all your players their pay.
But I guess you see, the thing is, right, the NRL are only there because of the clubs. So the ARL Commission is there to. It's not there to run the clubs. It's there to be the what's the word I'm looking for?
Enforcer.
No. The facilitator for the clubs, if you like.
Right. Yes.
The clubs are the boss in this scenario, and therefore, if you think of the English Premier League in football, the clubs get money from TV, but that's not their limit on what they spend. You can't tell the Abu Dhabi group that what you get from Sky TV is all you can spend. That's one player.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of these problems, we're actually creating these ourselves. Now, a lot of the things said about salary caps are that it keeps the competition even and all this. What it actually does as well is mean players rotate around a lot. So people say players aren't loyal anymore. One of the reasons they're not loyal, one of the reasons, not the reason, is that their clubs turn around to them and say, look, we can't fit you in the salary cap because of the said problems we've discussed. You're going to have to find another club. Now, nobody accuses the clubs of not being loyal. If they didn't have a salary cap, they could keep players. You know, I've always been anti-salary cap. Always been anti-salary cap. I'd rather see the big get bigger and everyone aspire to knock them off, rather than the big get bigger and then let's pull them down because they're salary cap. I remember when I was at Manly, the football manager said, after we won the comp in 08, he said the real trick starts now, Lee, because some of our players, the bonuses kick in now. Because you sign a contract with a player. I always use the example of David Williams. Do you remember the Wolfman?
Do I remember the Wolfman? Of course I remember the Wolfman.
I bet when they signed the contract with him, they didn't think he'd ever end up playing for New South Wales or Australia in X number of years, right? He wasn't that kind of player, really, was he? He wasn't.
No.
He went through a phase where he was really good.
Really,
and that was because of the scenario he was in at Manly and this, that, and the other. But, you know, people only remember him because they called him the Wolfman. Otherwise, he'd just be a basic, I won't say run-of-the-mill, but better than run-of-the-mill player, wouldn't he?
Yes.
That's what he would have been. So he probably signed a contract with Manly at the time, and they probably thought, yeah, we'll give you an extra 100 grand if you make Australia. He's not going to make Australia.
That's right.
You can have another 100 if you make Origin. And then all of a sudden,
he's bought 5 houses in Manly.
So these things happen. Sometimes winning the comp is the worst thing you can do. Sometimes getting in the top 4 and just hovering around it is better. The other thing is this whole Premiership window BS. Tell me another sport that talks about Premiership windows.
No one.
So, and if you want to know what a salary cap prevents, it prevents things like the Premier League. The Premier League is now the biggest export in British society. During the Brexit negotiations, if Theresa May had have said to Europe, well, we're going to stop putting football on your screens.
Yeah.
We're gonna put a limit on that. They'd have come to the table quickly and organised a real good Brexit deal because it's in such demand. It is huge. It's a behemoth. They're not on a salary cap. They have something called financial fair play, which means basically you can't spend more than you earn. But then when you've got oligarchs and sheikhs and that pulling some strings, you know, things change, don't they?
That's right. The sponsorship money just goes up every time you want to spend
more.
It's okay. They write a check. It would be interesting to see something like that happen, but you know, I don't think we're going to get to that stage. I think we're at an awkward stalemate, and I don't know how it ends. I do hope it gets resolved quickly. Clubs have started returning for preseason, and I guess some players would probably have, you know, they'd want to renegotiate their money as soon as this salary cap comes out as well. It could cause a multitude of issues within ranks.
We might have a players' strike.
We might, wouldn't it? You know, wouldn't it have helped the Dolphins out halfway through this year if there was, you know, they said, all right, the salary cap for next year, it's going up by this much. And then one player got an extension, and one player said, "Oh, well, I think I deserve one." You know, he got unhappy families, and then he went walkabouts. The Dolphins could have picked someone up.
Have we talked a bit too much now about the cabbage? Let's talk about some football, eh? England versus Samoa, who's going to win?
Oh, look, I think England win, mate. I see England in the final. I don't think Samoa can get it done. Oh, pardon me. I just believe that Samoa played their grand final against Tonga. They played really, really well. They were very emotionally invested. And I guess, you know, I feel like they may be a little bit drained, and I think England get it done this week. Yeah.
Raneel?
I actually think Samoa. Feel
I'll
like
give it another Tim. It's another
they're
cheese,
coming
man.
off a. But I think they're coming off a more harder game against Tonga, where England sort of cruised through Papua, and
Two ways of looking at the same problem.
yeah,
Absolutely. What do you think, Lee?
Funnily enough, I've just recorded a preview piece, technical and tactical. Should I give you a preview of the preview?
Please do.
Basically, England's defence hasn't been tested in this tournament. They've not been tested. You've got to remember when a team is playing a game of rugby league. So when they score, it's a consequence sometimes of a build-up of pressure. When they concede, it's often a combination of a build-up of pressure. When you're not under pressure in a game, you literally just dictate everything that goes on, right? There's no need to measure the pressure valve because you're running over the opposition, right? I always say it's easier to judge a team's game plan when they're flogging a team or there's a weaker team because you can literally see the patterns that they're trying to play. And that's basically been England's World Cup, including the Samoa game in round one, where by all accounts, they truly were underprepared. And I'll leave it at that, right? Bear in mind, I've been in England, so I heard some stories, right?
Yeah, okay.
So I'll leave it at that.
There's not many people in England too, so word would have got around quick.
Well, the rugby league world's very small, put it that way, and it's all around motorway, really.
Yeah.
I mean, this my
in
friends
the
in
north
Oxford and whatnot will shout at me for saying this, but the bulk of it is around the M62 motorway. So yeah, we hear things. So on that note, I've prepared a preview piece where the English defensive line has basically turned into a mess with next to no pressure being applied. So I'm thinking of pressure, natural pressure being 3, 4, or 5 sets of sustained pressure. No, this is one, right? Papua New Guinea put them under the pump when they decided to play the other day. They didn't score many points. Papua New Guinea, they scored 4, I think, but they stopped England scoring 2. All right. France caused them a bit of trouble for 10 minutes. Samoa caused them some trouble for about 5 or 6 minutes. If Samoa can match the completion rate of England, because England are a high completion team, they are going to cause England all sorts of trouble in attack, is my opinion. There's no way this defense could have changed in a week substantially. I don't think, however, that the way Samoa play, the way they haven't necessarily been coached, I don't think they are going to sustain throughout the game a real intense game plan. So I'm predicting England are going to win, but they're going to have the fright of their lives.
Right. Yeah, I think that either way the game goes, the winner of Australia and New Zealand still takes out the World Cup. I just can't see either of them surviving this game and then pushing on to win the World Cup. I just can't see it happening.
There's another thing about England's game too. When they exit, they're actually quite readable. So they do take 3 plays before they move it a bit, so that the 7 gets hold of it or whatever. So if they did proper homework this week, Samoa, they could give it a great nudge this week. I just doubt whether that has happened because I have my doubts about the coach and his, yeah. So, yeah, New Zealand, Australia predictions.
Mate, I think getting rid of Jared Rea-Hargreaves for a younger Moses Leota was a great call by the New Zealand side. Oh, geez, you're right, Raneel. You dropped your phone. Knock on. 6 more. Yeah, I love Moses Leota. I love the way he goes forward. And
so Jared Rea-Hargreaves is not in the team.
Yeah, not
has
in
he
the
been banned or
dropped? No. He's been dropped. He's been pushed. For a younger forward pack. I really, really like the New Zealand forward pack. I think strength for strength, they are definitely more powerful than the Australians. And if they stick to the right game plan, I think they will really struggle. I think the Aussies will really struggle to match with them through the middle of the park. It's just going to be very interesting to see the game plan come out for the New Zealanders on Saturday morning. I'm very much looking forward to this game of football. I think it's obviously for a lot of rugby league fans, it's the highlight of the tournament. Everyone has seen these two as 1 and 2, or whichever way you see it, the whole time. So yeah, I think this is going to be a cracking game of football. I think it's going to be very close. And to be honest, I'm torn of which way to see it. The only reason I'll go Australia is because I'm Australian.
Well, if you really were a true rugby league coach fan and follow my social media this week, you'll see I've done 3 posts pertaining to the Australia-New Zealand game. Now, Australia have exit sets that sort of wrap across the field quite regularly. All right. I'm not saying that's what they do all the time. They do it quite regularly. That will put New Zealand under a lot of pressure if they execute that well, because the New Zealand defensive line, the split isn't great. There's inconsistency in the line and this, that, and the other. Looking at this, I actually started to doubt Madge Maguire as a coach. You know, when I looked at him in detail, I really started to doubt it, because there's just some things I would go crazy at my team if they were doing them. Like it.
Yeah, but in the midst of a World Cup.
Yeah. So, do you not? Well, I'll give you one example, right? How much fullback has Manu played?
Yeah, not much at all. No.
All right.
No.
So do you reckon he can organise his defensive line well?
I think that would be the biggest thing he would struggle with.
Same with Sualihi with Samoa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all the time, if you work laterally with the ball, you can have a look, and if you get to the middle of the field and there's 4 on that side and 6, you can go at the 4.
Mm.
You know, that is happening 50% of the time from what I'm seeing.
Mm.
And I can be diplomatic and say that, it's tournament football, blah, blah, blah. To me, they're absolute basics. You should be able to put your defense, The other thing, attacking-wise, New Zealand, too much about going that way. And their eyes up. There's a clip I saw where Jerome Hughes should have just passed it to the back. He would have had 3-on-1 overlap. Passed it short, front man. Luckily, the front man, I think it was Manu again, carried a Fijian 8 meters over the line to score. The Aussies aren't going to let him do that. I think New Zealand have got to play a little bit of disruptive football.
Yeah.
Australia have a compressed defensive line on exit. You've got to move the ball around a bit, move them around a little bit, throw some shapes in, footwork at the line, get them on the back foot, and then play through them. Not because do you not think Australia sat there thinking New Zealand are going to try and power over us?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And Australia are good at getting numbers in the tackle and things like that. So, if 100 kgs running at 3 blokes who weigh 80 kilos, well, if them 3 get in, there's more weight in the defense than in the offense, isn't there?
That's right. Yes.
So, I can't. Based on coaching and structure, I can't see anything other than a good Australian win. But I've also got an awful lot of faith in the Kiwi players and their ability to bounce back from last week's performance.
Yes. I really think it'll be a ding-dong battle. I can't see it going any other way. But I think it'll be a cracking game Saturday morning.
Have you watched any of the ladies World Cup?
I haven't. I haven't.
I haven't.
I've not. No.
I'll definitely watch the final. A lot of the group games have been quite one-sided, and in England, I was quite keen to look at the rugby league, but the Women's World Cup hadn't started then when I was there, because it was in the evenings, so it was palatable. I wouldn't have got up in Australia at 4 a.m. to watch Scotland versus Australia. Yeah,
it's a little bit tougher to do at that stage.
Yeah. I reckon we're sort of nearing a natural end of this episode 23 of the pod.
Yeah, it feels
quiet
like that
today without Tim and James, I must say.
Well, I'm just happy that James is concentrating on keeping that bus on time.
Yeah.
Because there's some real concerns.
So he sends me about 18 texts a week. Lee, I can make it, especially because it's 11:30 my time. James, the clocks have changed in England. It's now 10:30. Like it's... Oh, no.
All right, now last stop. I've got to get on the podcast.
Yeah. Can't start work today till 11:30 because I'm doing a podcast at 10:30.
Oh God!
And then Tim's not on with his medallion vaping.
Yeah, looking from side to side when he talks. That's one thing I know about Tim. He'll look straight when someone else is talking. He'll look down the barrel, and then as soon as you go, Tim, what do you think? He'll go like this.
For those listening, he's shaking his head, Taylor, as if to.
He talks to his left and right. The cheese.
Raneel might as well put a cardboard cutout of himself there each week.
How do you know I haven't?
I think Raneel has, so he's got a genuine alibi when the cops come knocking again.
There's a Monday Night Football in England. There's a few footballers, ex-footballers. This is rugby league, not rugby league. It's football, and one of them's Gary Neville. And one of the things he always said is when he was getting angry about Manchester United, he goes, "But this is Manchester United. That's not how it should be happening here." It's something he said every week. Anyway. A comedian's took him off, right? And he's coughing them all. And there's like World War III going on in the studio. And this imitation of Gary Neville's going, "But this is Manchester United." And Roy Keane and Graham Souness are arguing with each other, fiery characters, and talking about the weather or something. This is Manchester United. That's what we could do with Raneel. He could just sit there. But I'm from Fiji.
Yeah. Just get him singing in the background.
Fiji will win it.
Fiji.
Yeah.
Mate, Tim still reckons the Bunnies are going to win this year's comp.
I think he still thinks they're going to win the World Cup and everything.
Yeah.
You know, I was reflecting on the Rugby League Coach podcast. And, you know, sometimes when something comes off and then they go back and pretend it was like all the plan.
Yeah.
Right. So we can say this is all the plan. We've got an Englishman in Australia. We've got a New South Welshman in Queensland.
Mm.
We've got a Queenslander in Queensland. We've got a New South Welshman with Fijian blood. And we've got an Englishman in England. That is like a massive covering of the rugby league world, basically.
It's almost like a perfect little cross-section of rugby league.
That's right. That's what I mean. So, do you remember when we sat there in that planning meeting, Taylor, and said, "Right, what we need to find a Fijian who lives in Sydney." we an English bloke,
Raneel Kumar. We handpicked him. How good! Oh, very good.
Is that us then?
That's us. I think that's us, Lee. We'll wrap her up there. We'll come back and we'll have lots to talk about next week with this game on the weekend, and hopefully a means to an end with the CBA negotiations. I think a lot of clubs enter preseason as of next week as well, so there could be a lot of things floating around.
I must apologise. You and I have been yawning away here, haven't we? The jet lag I copped coming back from England this time is the worst I have ever had.
Yeah.
And even now, so like this week, I've ended up like falling asleep at like 7 o'clock on Tuesday night, 8 o'clock on Tuesday, but then waking up at 5.
Oh.
Now, this might be normal for Australians. They like to go to bed early and get up early. Lee doesn't do this. Lee goes to bed whenever he feels like it and gets up whenever he feels like it. That's what Lee does. Right? Yeah, that's how Leroy rolls. This 5 a.m. malarkey. There's normally only one 5. Historically, there's been one 5 o'clock in my life, and it's the one in the PM.
Yeah, you know
what I mean? Like, I've never, normally the only time 5 a.m. I'd see is if I was late home from a night out.
Mate, I'm 5:30 every morning. I get up.
See what I mean? Morning. Aussie.
Yeah.
What time do you hit the pit and get up, Raneel?
Probably 10:30 and then get up at 8.
Geez, that's a good kip.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, I've had a sleep like that in years.
I know, yeah.
If I slept like that, I'd have the most beautiful skin. I'd look 25 still.
This podcast, we are the masters of saying, well, that's probably the end of the podcast, and I'm talking for like another 5, 10, 15.
About
listeners are watching on YouTube. You can see it. Listeners are probably going, "Oh, thank God it's over, that boring crap," and then we'll just rattle on for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, I can just imagine someone going, been listening to the Rugby League Coach podcast. Oh, you're getting a few tips out of it. No, but Raneel Kumar, he gets some good sleep that game.
Yeah. Oh no, I pontificated about football today. What did you do for your birthday, Taylor?
Mate, I had a good family dinner at home. And
do you not have them cake most nights?
Just cake. No, I just enjoyed time with the family. I didn't do anything.
I reckon you've got a bit of cake, yeah.
Yeah.
And how was your stag do on Saturday?
Yeah, that was a bit of a fast and loose one. That one.
Do you want to tell us anything about your leisure time, Raneel? Anything you can share?
My leisure time. What have I been doing?
He did send me a text the other day. Lee, can we go camping?
Yeah, I did. I said if I go to one of your camps in Queensland, your clinics,
yeah.
come out for a night.
Yeah,
in the woods, an Englishman.
Yes.
In the Aussie outback.
An Englishman and a Fijian walk into a bar. Next week, where's the priest? No, that'd be very interesting. I'd love to see you two share a tent together.
Maybe we can do one of the podcasts from there, Raneel.
Oh,
the Wilderness Podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, are you going to have running toilets, or are you going to have to do bush poos?
You got to do bush poos.
Yeah. Mate, if I'm going, I don't care where it lands.
All right, I've had enough of you.
Toodle pip.
Toodle pip.